Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into some really challenging material from a source known as the Silent Archive. And it starts with a bold premise that our entire understanding of time is fundamentally flawed. It's inviting us to perform an audit of our eternity. So yeah, let's get into it. Okay, so right out of the gate, no punches are pulled. The source claims our basic belief in time, that it moves in a straight line from past to future, isn't just a mistake. It's pathological, a sickness of the mind. So what exactly does that mean? So let's break down what the source is calling this core fatal error, because this is a belief system that apparently shapes every single decision we make, whether we realize it or not. And this lays out the two opposing views perfectly. So on the left, you've got our common assumption, right? Time is a one-way street, a resource we spend, and then it's gone. But on the right is what the archive calls the clinical reality. And in that reality, time is a closed circuit. It's a loop. And this right here is the heart of the delusion. It's that comfortable idea that tomorrow is a clean slate, that you can just hit a reset button and escape the logic you built yesterday. The source argues that this is a complete fantasy, and it's a fantasy that systems of control absolutely thrive on. So if time isn't a line, what is it? Well, the alternative model is, frankly, a bit dizzying. The source calls it the closed circuit, this idea that time is a recursive, repeating cycle. Think about what that really means for a second. It completely reframes every action you take. Nothing is just over. Every fear you've ever given into, every act of compliance, it's not gone. It's a permanent pulse in a loop that is destined to play again and again and again. And this is where the implications get incredibly personal. If you live what the source calls a life of high-entropy noise, just shallow desires going along to get along, you're not just living a single forgettable life. No, you are condemning your own consciousness to repeat that exact frequency, those same failures for infinity. You literally become a ghost haunting yourself. Now, you might be thinking this is all just some heavy philosophy, but the source doesn't leave it there. It actually tries to quantify this reality with its own governing law, what it calls the poetic science of your existence. And here it is, the recurrence constant. Now look, don't get bogged down by the math here. That's not really the point. What's important are the concepts these symbols represent. This is basically a formula designed to measure the quality of your life signal as it echoes through this internal loop. So let's break that down. The first part, up in the numerator, is signal quality. You can think of this as the clarity of your intent. How strong and coherent is the signal you're broadcasting into reality? Is it a focused laser, or is it just a bunch of static? Right next to it is sovereign logic. This isn't just about what you think, it's about the force of your will. How good are you at making your intent actually command and change the world around you? It's the difference between having a great idea and actually making it real. And then, down in the denominator, you have what's called the predator. This is everything that degrades your signal. It's all the energy you lose to pointless emotion, the friction from your own doubt, the leaks from your vanity. It's all the internal and external noise that weakens your will. So based on the result of this formula, the quality of your signal versus all the stuff trying to tear it down, the source says two possible fates emerge, two ultimate outcomes for your consciousness inside this cycle. The first path is the recursive ash. This is the fate of a low-quality, noisy signal. It's a consciousness that's basically trapped in a loop of its own mediocrity. You become a glitch, forever replaying your own cowardice, endlessly haunting your own failures. And the source is just brutal here. It argues that the only true hell isn't some external place of punishment. It's the internal one. The crushing weight of being forced to eternally relive a life that you never had the courage to truly live. But then there's the other path, the sovereign architect. This is the individual who creates a signal so pure, a life so deliberate, that it is actually worthy of being repeated for infinity. They don't just endure the cycle, they've authored it. They've turned the prison into a throne. So this is the crucial question, isn't it? How do you make that leap? How do you go from being the ash, just a victim of the loop, to becoming the architect, its master? Well, the source provides a protocol. It's a three-step protocol. First, logic purification. You basically audit everything in your life. If a thought or an action isn't worthy of repeating forever, you liquidate it. Get rid of it. Second, amorphati, which means a love of one's fate. You have to fully embrace the loop and start acting as if this very moment is the permanent blueprint for all eternity. And finally, recursive governance. This is where you build a personal code so strong that you become the constant, the unshakable center of your own loop. And the ultimate goal of this protocol? It's transcendence. It's about moving beyond being just a temporary biological host and instead becoming a law of your own existence, a persistent, undeniable frequency in the fabric of reality itself. And this brings us to the final profound challenge the Silent Archive leaves us with. It forces you to audit your own life right now with the heaviest weight imaginable. If you had to live this very moment, this day, and this life over and over again for infinity, would it be a masterpiece or would it be a hell of your own making?
All right, today we're cracking open the Silent Archive to decode something called the Recurrence Protocol. This text, it doesn't just challenge how we see things, it aims to completely rewire our understanding of reality itself. So let's get right into it.
Right out of the gate, the source makes a huge claim. It's saying that our most fundamental belief, that time is a straight line, past, present, future, isn't just a simple mistake. No, it's a pathological flaw, a deep-seated error in our thinking. And this isn't some abstract philosophical debate. The archive calls this a fatal error. Think about that. One single belief that, according to this, has absolutely devastating consequences for our consciousness. So if not a straight line, then what? And here it is. The linear delusion is that comforting story we tell ourselves, that yesterday is over and tomorrow's a totally fresh start. But the reality presented here, it's much more unsettling. Time is a closed loop, a circuit. Everything you've ever done, every thought you've ever had, it's not gone. It's all still right here in the system. And this is where it gets genuinely chilling. You see, in a closed circuit, a mistake isn't just a one-time thing you learn from and move past. It becomes a permanent pulse in that circuit, an error that just echoes forever. So this brings us to the principle that governs this whole reality. It's presented as a law and one that carries, an incredible burden, what the text calls the ultimate weight. Okay, the key here is that the source doesn't frame this as some mystical idea. It's presented as a matter of pure logic. Think about it. If you have a limited number of building blocks in the universe, but an unlimited amount of time, then every possible combination has to happen again and again and again, infinitely. That includes the exact state of your life right now, in this very moment. And they don't stop there. The archive suggests this isn't just an abstract concept. It can actually be measured. There's a formula, the recurrence constant, that supposedly quantifies how your specific consciousness, your signal, resonates inside this eternal loop. So here's how they break it down. It's basically an internal battle. On one side, you have your strength, your signal quality, which is the clarity and purity of your logic, combined with your sovereign logic, which is just the raw force of your will, your intent. But fighting against that always is energy decay. That's all the friction, the doubt, the ego, the vanity, the emotional noise. The goal is simple, right? Maximize your signal and crush the decay. And this all leads to two completely different outcomes. You can be the chaser, you're trapped, you're terrified by the repetition. You're just a biological host, and this whole loop feels like a prison. Or you can become the architect, the one who actually writes the frequency of the loop. You stop being a host and become a law of nature. And suddenly, that prison starts to look a lot like a throne. But what happens if you fail? What if you never become the architect? This next part explores the fate of those who stay unrefined inside that loop. The source poses this really stark question. If your entire existence is a signal in a circuit, what happens when that signal is weak or corrupted, or maybe just not there at all? What's the fate of that node? The answer they give is recursive ash. The text describes it as the feeling of being trapped in a cheap, low-quality simulation that you yourself created. Every single moment of cowardice, every time you gave up your sovereignty for the comfort of the herd, it's now on repeat. Forever. Because you refuse to build a signal with any quality, you're just left with the static, the dross. And get this, it's not just a personal failure. The text claims there's an external force, something called the Leviathan, that actually feeds on your repetitive mistakes. It wants you stuck in that loop of consuming and reacting, because a person who's busy replaying their past can never, ever design their future.
And this is the moment of tragic realization. You understand you're not a ghost haunting the machine, you're a glitch inside of it. You see, a ghost implies you once belonged. A glitch is just an error, a meaningless piece of code stuck on an infinite loop.
So this is the deadliest lie you can tell yourself. Oh, it doesn't matter this one time. Because in the eternal return, it matters forever. The archive is very clear on this. The crushing weight of an eternal mediocrity, that's the only real hell. Okay, so after laying out that incredibly grim fate, the text provides the way out. It outlines a clear protocol for seizing control, for going from unrefined to sovereign. The whole goal is a total transformation of your being. It's about shifting from something fleeting and reactive, what they call the transient, to something stable, permanent, and causal, the immutable. So let's break down these 3 mandates. First step, logic purification. You audit every single thought, every action, and you ask, is this worthy of being repeated for infinity? If the answer is no, you liquidate it instantly. Second is amor fati, the great yes. You don't just accept the loop, you embrace it. You act with a total conviction that this exact moment is the permanent blueprint for 1 billion future lives. And finally, recursive governance. You stop constantly looking for new things, new inputs. Instead, you build a signal so pure, so solid, that you become the constant that the entire cycle has no choice but to revolve around. And this is what that end state looks like. You're not just a person running through the machine anymore. You've become both the ghost and the machine, the beginning and the end. You've become the circle itself. The transformation here is absolute. By following this protocol, the architect stops being just another person who's subject to the cycle's whims. They become the very law that governs it. And there it is. That's the ultimate outcome. You don't just follow the laws of reality. Through complete mastery of this eternal return, you become a fundamental, persistent law of reality yourself. And the text leaves us with this final, cryptic instruction, a reminder that this whole process isn't about shouting from the rooftops. It's about silent inner mastery. And one last, chilling confirmation that the system we're in is and always will be a recursive loop. The only question is, what signal will you choose to repeat?